Do you want to learn about multifamily investing, but you just don't know where to start? You think you're too new. You think it's too overwhelming. Well, I have the event for you. It's called Multifamily Live, and it's happening this June 10th, 11th, and 12th, a 3-day event. And best of all, guys, it's virtual. You don't have to worry about, can I shake hands? Do I have to get on a plane? What's it mean? Am I afraid of COVID? None of that stuff. It's virtual. You can do it from your home. It's a 3-day event, and this event is really about teaching you how to invest in multifamily real estate. They want you to know how to achieve the, quote, quit your job passive income, right? By investing in large multifamily properties. Even if you're a new investor or if you're an experienced investor and you want to get into multifamily, this is the event you cannot miss. Guys, go and get your tickets now before they're gone. It's June 10th, 11th, and 12th this coming June. It's going to be amazing. I know the folks putting this on. I have talked to all of them. I know about their businesses. These are the smartest multifamily people in the nation. You must go get your tickets if you're interested in Multifamily Live before the ticket prices go up. As it gets closer to the event, it's going to go up. Here's how you get them. Go to bestrealestateevent.com. That's bestrealestateevent.com. Go check it out. Even if you're not sure, just go to the site, check it out, see if it looks like it's for you, and grab your tickets now. All right, guys, let's get on to it.
We just had to learn the nuances of self-storage. What are all the income sources? Does this facility have all those? And what can I add to it after I purchase it? What are all the expenses? And am I gathering all of those to make sure that I'm paying exactly, for what I am purchasing, and which is knowing, all the income and the expenses. So, there's the art and the science to it. That's the science. Then the art to it is, now where can I take this thing? What's my exit strategy, and how much can I increase the NOI after I purchase it? So that was the piece that, to this day, Mike, I'm still learning, what that looks like. I know, but I'm still learning new things and new ways to be able to make that happen in a different fashion.
You're listening to the Just Start Real Estate Podcast. If you're serious about your real estate investing business and need real answers, you are in the right place. And now, your host, Mike Simmons.
All right, thank you for joining me on Just Start Real Estate today. That's Just Start Real Estate, by the way. I think I just slurred my own show name. Just Start Real Estate. Thank you for being here. Guys, welcome back or welcome here for the first time. Either way, I hope you enjoy what we have for you today. We're talking self-storage. We're talking self-storage with a guy who's been in the game for a long time. He knows what he's talking about. He's been involved in real estate since the early 90s, but self-storage for the last 15 years or so, and he is just a straight shooter. I love it. He just answers questions. There's no fluff. There's no, getting back to the point because he's not making a point. Like, he's a very succinct, very smart, very straightforward guy, and I enjoy very much interviewing folks like that because you ask a question, you get a straight answer, and that's the best. That's the best I can ever hope for as a host of a show. His name is Scott Meyers. He is the founder and owner of Kingdom Self-Storage, leading expert in the self-storage investment area. He owns and operates 3 multi-million-dollar businesses. He's been featured on CNNMoney, Forbes, BBC, and many others. Guys, he is the owner of 30-plus self-storage facilities over 9 states. He just is an absolute rock star. He's crushing it in self-storage. He is an absolute expert, and we had a great conversation. And I want you to really take notes. If you're interested in self-storage, this is the person to listen to. I really, really believe that he knows exactly what he's talking about. And we had a great conversation. I got to learn because I don't know a lot about self-storage. So me getting to interview somebody like this and sitting in the seat of the learner is always fun. And I had just a really great conversation. So without any further ado, guys, I give you Scott Meyers. All right, Scott, thank you for being here, man. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. You're here on a recommendation from someone I think a lot of. I've had a chance to dig into you a little bit, and I'm excited to have you here. So welcome to Just Start Real Estate.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to talk about something that I am admittedly a little ignorant about. I don't have a lot of knowledge in this area, and it's fun because I can put myself in the shoes of a learner and someone who truly is just trying to figure this all out and understand why someone would do this. And we're talking about a lot of things today. We're going to get into some other stuff, but mostly self-storage. But before we do that, I know you've been in this game for a while, but let's dial back and talk about a little bit about who you are, where you come from, why you're even in real estate. I jokingly ask people, what went horribly wrong that you decided real estate was for you? No, joking. Real estate's great, but how did you get into it?
Yeah, fair question. Fair question. So, I used to work for a Fortune 500 company, and once I finally got out of college and got a paycheck and actually had money left over after paying for all my bills, I started looking into ways to be able to invest. And so, read everything I could get my hands on how to invest in the stock market. But the more I read, the more books that I read, the more people that I talked to, there was always the last chapter, or oh, by the way, I know somebody who is doing real estate as well. And so, once I dug in a little bit further and started looking into real estate and real estate investors, I found that, the richest people in the world didn't make their money in Wall Street on the stock market. They made it in real estate. So then I began this quest and began looking for ways to invest in real estate to kind of hedge against what I was already putting into my 401k and maxing that out at the company level. So bought the Carlton Sheets program. Some of the folks out there may recognize that.
Let me ask you this, though. Did you buy DVDs or VHS? That's the question.
Oh, my gosh.
It was VHS.
I have to answer that, Mike. I have to answer that.
Listen, I'm just going to say I don't anymore, but I had the VHS as well. So you're not alone, but yes.
This is 1992, so it's VHS. Yes,
yeah.
And, everybody giggles about, Carlton Sheets, he was on TV and everything. And you know what? Like you talked about when you went to your first seminar that, not all the content is applicable, but it gave you the confidence to go out and do it. And that's what we did. And so that was the model. Bought a house and, using the BRRRR method before it was called the BRRRR method, and, fixed it up, remodeled it, rented it out, refinanced it, and moved on and bought two more. So then ramped up the single family side. We were buy and hold, looking to keep everything that we bought, and we didn't get to that place where we had the freedom and the cash flow that we had expected, that Carlton talked about. And so then we got into apartments, thinking economies of scale would fix that. And, less management headaches and property managers and management companies to handle it. And, at the end of the day, we're still, 70 to 100 unit complexes, and we had managers and management companies. But, at the end of the day, we still have to write the checks and handle some of the problems.
Yep.
And all they did is just kind of compound. We had 400 apartments then. And again, not a big portfolio, but a number of units, and decided, my wife said, basically, either you fire me or I quit, because I am tired of spending this much time for so little free time.
That's like bad and worse. What did you let her do? Did you fire her? Did you let her quit? I don't think I would want to fire my wife.
I took it right up to the line where she was about to quit, and then I released her, freed up her future to pursue other career opportunities.
Nice.
So then, we decided that, it was time to do something different. And so, if you don't like tenants and toilets, which is what takes up, most of the time, then it's either parking lots or self-storage. And so began looking into storage. And, at the time there weren't really any books out there. There wasn't any, there wasn't an organization like ours that teaches people now about how to invest. And so I went to the trade shows and talked to some folks in the business. And
can I ask you real quick, Scott, what year are we at now? Where did you discover self-storage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're at 2005 now.
Okay.
And I began looking into storage.
Okay.
And so, visited the trade shows and talking to a consultant, paid a consultant to ride around the car with him to see his facilities and pick his brain, if you will. I didn't pick his brain. I paid for it, and got a good head start, and then went out and did it. Joined up with another gentleman that was a broker in the market, had good credit, brought cash, which is a good partner to have. And so we bought a facility, a larger one together.
Okay.
And we were off to the races. That was the first one that got me into it. And then the banks took us seriously after that, and then began doing it on our own. And now we're at the place where we've grown up to, we're approaching 2.4 million square feet of self-storage and about 14,000 doors. And we develop, we syndicate, we acquire, we convert existing industrial buildings and dark, empty, big box retail stores into self-storage. And we do it all over the country.
So lot of stuff that I want to go back and dig into pretty deeply. So you said there was really you do have a program where you teach people how to invest in self-storage. Real quick, what is that called?
Yeah. So basically, it's our website, selfstorageinvesting.com. And, at that site are lots of resources. But the first project that we came out with was the how to find, evaluate, purchase, and managing self-storage facilities. And
Okay.
so, yeah, nice short title. But we really did get tired of people asking me to, take them out to lunch and pick my brain. I used to run my real estate investor association. We ran workshops and I love to teach. Don't get me wrong. I have a heart for it. But I couldn't, all the people that wanted to pick my brain and take me out to lunch, after doing that so many times, and then some of them making me pay for lunch, I decided maybe I should create a book or a home study system to show them how to do it.
That's
and
so
that was the genesis of that.
That's hilarious. So you didn't have that, obviously, when you started. And I think you said you went to like trade shows and things, and somebody kind of drove you around. It sounds like a lot of figuring it out on your end. When you started that endeavor, you said now you have like the banks take you seriously, and you have this portfolio and all this. But when you started out back then, let's talk about back then, and let's even talk about like after that. Let's talk about now, because maybe the game has changed. How does one, let's start with find at a high level, like macro. How does one find a self-storage facility that is a good investment, right? I assume that like any other investment, there's good and bad. Like not every self-storage is a fantastic investment, right?
Right.
So how do you find the right ones?
Yeah. So, in comparison, commercial real estate, obviously different than single family homes. The value is based upon, in single family, the comps in the neighborhood and how, how it stacks up and measures up and how well you've done with it. Whereas with commercial real estate, as just about everybody on this call knows, is that it's based upon the net operating income. How much money does it bring in, subtract the expenses is your net operating income, and then you apply a market capitalization rate to it. That's how we value commercial real estate. Yep. So I had that foundation from underwriting apartment complexes, and we understood, what the whole process looks like. We just had to learn the nuances of self-storage. What are all the income sources? Does this facility have all those? And what can I add to it after I purchase it? What are all the expenses, and am I gathering all of those to make sure that I'm paying exactly, for what I am purchasing, and which is knowing, all the income and the expenses. So, there's the art and the science to it. That's the science. Then the art to it is, now where can I take this thing? What's my exit strategy, and how much can I increase the NOI after I purchase it? So that was the piece that, to this day, Mike, I'm still learning, what that looks like. I know, but I'm still learning new things and new ways to be able to make that happen in a different fashion. So in the beginning, it was really just the skill set and understanding, the business and talking to as many people as possible. And really the lenders, helped me out at that time when I give them my underwriting and my valuation for them to say, well, you forgot this and you missed this. And by the way, we underwrite with a 5% management fee. And sometimes we look at this. So it was, just it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a real estate community to raise a strong self-storage investor.
Gotcha. So how are the cap rates applied to a self-storage as opposed to like multifamily? What is is there a correlation? Is it the same? Is it different? How do they determine that? How does anyone determine?
Same but different, A, B, and C, so the A, Class A are, just that. And apartments, it's REITs, the real estate investment trusts, the Class A, nicest location, highest finishes, and therefore the highest rent and the greatest locations. Yep. Same thing with self-storage. It's, the 2 to 3 story, all temperature controlled, gleaming facilities that are right on the road in the major metropolitan statistical areas, and all temperature controlled, all electronic, all the amenities. Class B is usually single story, maybe on the outskirts. It still could be in that same market. May have asphalt, may have gravel. It still has security, professionally managed, but it's just doesn't have all the bells and whistles. And then C, varying degrees of that. Rural, a little further out, less professionally managed, smaller, older, maybe some obsolete sizes like 5x5, which nobody wants anymore. And in a market where the rental rates are low, and it's usually a mom and pop that's running it, and they're usually not there behind the counter.
As a rule, which types of classification of places are you investing in generally?
Yeah. So let's go back to where we started and where we teach our folks. And, the money is made in the beginning in those Class C facilities. We don't want to be, way out in the rural parts of the country where there's not activity and not the ability, not even competition or the ability to raise rates. But, we're in the micropolitans, and we're in those third tier areas, and we're buying a facility that's in the path of progress. It's a 5-acre parcel, and it's got buildings on 3 or 4 acres. Not managed well. The owner hasn't raised rates in 10 years because, they like to stay full. They don't have a website. They don't know how to market. And those are the ones that we can take, and we can purchase them. turn them around. And by way of turning them around, adding technology, reducing the manager's hours or payroll hours, marketing the heck out of it, raising rates, and then adding buildings onto the additional 4 and 5 acres, and then continuing to raise rates and eventually either refinancing or then selling off to a bigger player. And
is
we've
your
done
game?
that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I apologize,
No, go
but
ahead.
real quick, I want to jump in. Is your model always to find an opportunity, maximize its potential, and then sell it, or are these long-term buy and holds for you?
We are nothing but value add folks. I think I learned a long time ago, at least for me, anybody can go out and pay retail for anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can go out to the mall and go to Macy's and pay top dollar for any shirt that you want.
Yep.
The I guess equivalent of that is anybody can go to the retail store and go out and pay top dollar, at a low cap rate for a self-storage facility that's listed in the brokerage community, that's available for anybody to see.
Mm-hmm.
We'd rather find something by way of a direct mail that we send out, or the broker that has a pocket listing, a troubled asset, that we've run across, or something that we just, see that we can take it from here to here.
Yeah.
And because to me, that's the safest way to do it. And as long as you're doing the heavy lifting, why not, make the bigger returns on it? So we are nothing but junkers. We are nothing but value add folks. And we want to 2x our money no matter what.
Yeah, and that's investing. I guess my real question is it always exit for you? Are you always trying to exit in a short amount of time, or are you holding this for decades?
Yeah, good question. So we do both. Most of what we're doing right now are larger projects that are developments and conversions and even some value add projects where we're syndicating and bringing our investors in order for them to get their internal rate of return. There's time value of money. And so those projects are 3, 4, and 5 years. And to get the biggest bucket of money is to sell it rather than to refinance it and keep some of that equity in it.
Yeah.
So that has been our strategy. But along with that is a small percentage of our projects that we are keeping ourselves for long term. Okay. But there still comes a point where, even your own equity that you built up, and if it's just chugging along and, a couple of rental increases, as long as we've got a rock star team, which we have, and I got air in my lungs, I'm going to continue to accrete value and move that money until I'm 52. I'm only a third of the way through my life by the actuarial tables right now. So we're going to be doing this for a while before we slow down.
Wait a minute, a third of your way through. I'm about the same age as you. I'm excited to know we're going to live to be 150?
Yeah, well, I attended Dan Sullivan's conference or not his conference, but as a strategic coach for a year. And when you begin to do the exercises and look at how much money you need to retire, it's pretty telling. He's got all the tables up there. And those of us that are around this age, we're projected to live to about 140 or 150.
Oh, that would be fantastic. That's exciting.
Yeah.
All right. I got to start eating better. I'm sort of eating as if I'm going to die in 30 years. So I got to change that a little bit.
Well, it's the advances in technology. They'll just replace those organs that go bad. So we're good.
All right, good. I haven't even changed my diet now. I can eat what I'm eating. All serious. So folks that are listening to this, and including myself, I've been investing in real estate since 2008. I've not been doing it as long as you, but for someone who doesn't know anything about self-storage, and let's just say someone who's starting out a little bit newer, if they want to do this, I know that you have the ability and you offer to let people invest passively with you. Okay, we'll talk about that. But for now, let's talk about the person who's got all kinds of fire in their belly and they want to do this. Is this something you really need to add on once you have a lot of experience in real estate otherwise? Or can someone start as a self-storage person having never done real estate before in their life?
Yeah, always easier the more experience that you have, but there's always a first time as well. So the good news is that in commercial real estate and self-storage as well as part of that, I think most people get scared because there's more commas and more zeros and the banks aren't going to take me seriously. How am I going to be able to do this? Well, the good news is that, banks, they look more to the asset, the strength of the asset than they do the strength of the borrower when it comes to commercial real estate. So you found a deal and it means it's not an opportunity, it's a deal. You've underwritten it, you've determined that. And so now, you go in to talk to the lender. The good news is that they're going to, do a global spread and look at your financials, but they're also looking at the property because their exit strategy, or they're looking at worst case scenario, is that, if things all go to heck in a handbasket with you as the syndicator, the owner, the operator, the developer, that they're going to take it back and they're still going to be able to have some value. They'll put it in receivership. somebody manage it for a couple of months, clean it up, and then they'll sell it.
Yeah.
And so that ultimately they have to fall back on, and that's more difficult for them to recoup that money in a single family house. They're usually on the losing end on that scenario. But if you're coming in with 25% down on a piece of commercial real estate and you happen to go away, they're actually going to make money if they take it back and sell it, so long as it hasn't been completely driven into the ground.
Yeah.
So it helps to have experience. And if not, underwriting did get tightened up after, the global crash in 2008. And then even during COVID, the banks have gotten a little more stringent on their underwriting.
Yeah.
And so if this is your first and it's a larger project, you may have to bring in somebody, not necessarily to sign on the loan, but just to be a part of the LLC.
Yeah.
They could have 2%, 3% of the shares that you give up in exchange for that. They just want to see that you have somebody on your team that has some skin in the game that is going to be driving this and at least guiding you. And we've done that. I've been brought into projects and just take a small percentage because that's all the bank needed to get this thing across the finish line and approved at loan committee. Gotcha. So long-winded answer to your question, Mike, but I don't think people need to be scared about this. And there are people that get into self-storage without any real estate experience. They may have small business experience.
Yeah.
They may have, and the SBA has some fantastic programs for self-storage because they view it as a small business, which is very liberal in terms of first-time borrowers and first-time owners of self-storage. Yeah. So that and many other ways that we could talk about. So it really, don't be nervous about it. If you're willing to go out and do it, then do it. I think, Mike, we put this a different way. I think that's what you're shouting all the time is to just start, telling everybody to just start, like in your book.
Yep.
We have a saying around here where stop, just, aim. We get those folks that are always aiming and they never pull the trigger. And so, it's, pull the trigger. It's just time. Just start.
Yeah. I like that. I like that message. And it's good because I asked that specifically, hoping that's kind of what you would say. People think, self-storage, that's like, that'll be my end game. Like I'll spend the next 20 years buying rental. It's like, wait, why?
Earning the right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, earning the right. Like I'm, as the crow flies kind of a guy, like if that's what you want, go straight toward that. Don't take a bunch of detours that maybe don't have to be taken. So you mentioned getting financed through the SBA potentially and like traditional lenders. What is, and you also mentioned 25% down. Is there a standard down payment when you're going to go do this that bank's going to want to look for?
Yeah, I think the traditional lenders that we go to are the savings and loans, the credit unions, the community banks. They're more apt to lend on these smaller facilities when people are first starting out, that's in their backyard, that they can go see it, touch it, feel it themselves. And the loan committee folks, as well as know who you are, look under the hood of the business and, and your financials. So I think it's much easier that way. And those banks are typically 75%. They may go up to 80%. But the good news is that, this is the asset that they want on their balance sheet right now. It does so well during a recession. It's done extremely well during a pandemic. And so, they like the asset. The SBA is actually, they have a little higher LTV. They'll go up to 90% LTV. And they do have great programs where they bring people in even with lower credit scores, maybe a little bit of hair on their credit. But again, their job, their role, the SBA, Small Business Administration, is growing businesses and growing jobs. Yeah. So even though self-storage doesn't grow a lot of jobs, this is a way to be able to get money out into the marketplace to begin to grow this business. So another avenue. And we always start there. The downside is that they take a long time, whereas with the community banks, credit unions, they can close something pretty quickly as long as they understand it.
Okay. So when it comes to a self-storage facility, what are some things that you may find an opportunity and you start underwriting it and everything is good? Is there anything that would keep you away that isn't intuitive or people might not think about before they get into it? Like, is there lessons learned where you're like, I've seen this. I don't care how the numbers look. I'm not touching it.
There's small gotchas and there's big ones.
Okay.
Sometimes they are functionally obsolete, meaning if this is a first generation facility built in the 70s, early 80s, well, the most popular size back then was 5x5. The most popular size now, any guesses?
10x10.
10x15.
10x15. Okay.
And approaching 10x20.
Okay.
And, people don't want this, little 5-foot door or small door in these 5x5 units because they can't put anything in it. And so if the whole thing was built with that or primarily, you're going to be discounting those heavily and it's just functionally obsolete. That's going to be difficult. If it's really in a rural area, I'm probably not going to look at it anyways. There's just not a lot of activity. We like to have competition from the REITs and the national players and regional players to drive rates up. And so the absence of that, if we have to be the ones that are the rate setters in a market, then we probably are not, it just may not work, and we can't drive the performance of that facility.
Yeah.
There's others in which, the last time it was assessed for tax purposes was when it was vacant land, and mom and pop built it, 15, 20 years ago. And the assessment is at 120,000. And in this municipality, they don't reassess until a sale. And so now they're selling it for 1.2 and you're the buyer. Well, guess what's going to happen to your taxes? And obviously, your profit and loss is going to take a hit.
Right.
And so if the seller's got it in their mind that this is the value, and all of a sudden you underwrite it and you see, here's what the taxes are going to be. Now I'm not getting anywhere near the returns that I thought I was going to get, or I may be in the negative. And obviously it's something that we have to walk away from.
Gotcha.
So just a lot of due diligence. I think that's where people make a lot of mistakes. They just get excited about them. They don't do their homework. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so outside of, I'm not sure if there's any other, real gotchas other than that. The good news is there's what you see is what you get. You do your due diligence on the numbers and you do your inspections. There aren't too many surprises. We just stay away from the markets where we can't really drive their performance, I guess is a better way of answering your question.
How often or how big of a concern is it, if any, that when I assume one of the major strategies is raising rates. How often does that create an exodus? Everyone is like, screw this guy is raising my rates. Like this is the fear, right? When people buy something.
It is the fear. Yep. So good news for self-storage is that our leases are month to month. That gives us a lot of flexibility. First of all, no commitment on the client's part. So they're just like, great, month to month, fantastic. So we move them in with a special, and then they come up to full price next month. And then 3-4 months down the road, well, we're going to have a rate adjustment here, cost of living, and our insurances go up, our expenses go up. And we're passing this along. It's $3, $4, $5. Is somebody going to borrow a truck or rent a U-Haul and for a day, get their brother-in-law down, move out, go down the road, pay another $19 move-in fee, move everything else in to save $3, $4, $5? They're not. We don't get the mass exodus.
So what about when you first take it over though? Are you talking about a $3, $4, $5 increase when you first take over the place, or is it more like a $50 or $30? Is it like crazy or higher?
Well, any of these questions, Mike, I could say it depends, and it does. If we come into, and it is those mom and pop facilities, and they haven't raised rates in 20 years, and so the delta is $20 below what the street rates are now, and what we're coming into. Well, those new people, we're going to bring them up to, they're going to come in at that rate, and then those other folks, we're going to wait 30 days. We send out, 2 good news letters. The first one is good news. New owners, we're going to make these changes. And 30 days later, the second good news letter that comes out says, good news. Hope you liked everything that you've seen. The good news is we've done an audit on the rent roll, and our street rate is this for a 10 by 10, which is what you have. The good news is we're not going to raise your rate to that high, but we're going to raise it to this, so we're going to raise it by $5, $10, $15, whatever, that delta is. But the good news is it's still less than all of our competition, and we show them the competition. So in other words, don't move. Why would you move? And if they're going to move out, so be it. Now I've got a unit that is freed up that I can bring in at full rate and not have, these folks in here at half of the rate or $20 below. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's totally smart. Like you said, you raised it, but as long as they can't do better, why would anyone borrow the truck, rent the U-Haul, break their back to move things only to pay more or the same? It doesn't make any sense. So perfect. I love it. That's great.
And the good news is, 200 units at $5 a month, you just gave yourself $1,000 raise times 12 is 12,000. Even at a 10 cap, you just created $120,000 of value in your small facility by sending out letters.
And what's really attractive to me as an investor and someone who's dealt with toilets and hassles and things is you don't have tenants. I mean, you have tenants, but you don't have like the same kind. You don't have the same style of tenant, right? Somebody in there beating your place up, messing with the plumbing and doing damage to the place. So that's amazing. You mentioned earlier streams of income. What kind of streams of income? Other than the rent of the unit, are there other ways to make money with a facility?
Sure. So one of them, let's start with move-in, and that is, as I just mentioned, the admin fee, the non-refundable administration fee when they move in. So, we don't have to take deposits. Some people do. Some of the old mom and pops take a deposit. But what are you trying to cover? It's a metal box on a concrete slab. It's not like we're giving them it back, because their carpet's immaculate. It's a $19 non-refundable admin fee or more. So that's an income stream.
Okay.
Renter's insurance, if they don't carry it and show proof of it, in many of our facilities, at our Class A facilities, we require it. So either you show us that you have a rider, or you have to purchase it, not through us, but here's a provider that we recommend, and you purchase it through them.
Yep.
And we do get a commission on that as well, even though
Okay.
we're not selling it. Or we get a portion of it,
Sure.
put it that way. We don't get a commission because we're not selling it. And then if we have a larger retail area in the office, then we sell locks, boxes, and moving supplies. And we do require them to put the disc locks on. They can't come and bring their free lock that they got in their luggage, that anybody could go by and twist off and open up.
Yeah.
They have to have a good solid lock. And some of our facilities, we do mandate a disc lock. And so they have to purchase that.
Gotcha.
And then it goes on from there. If you have a boat and RV lot, you can charge for dump services. You can charge for propane, for detailing services. We sell eBay services. We have a pack and ship center in some of our facilities. We also have areas that are set aside for record storage and shredding services for those records that have gone beyond the 7-year HIPAA rule. Yeah. So there's 40 different profit centers we've identified, depending upon the facility, the size, how you're operating it and manning it from a personnel standpoint, and the market you're in, whether it dictates whether somebody is, it is a hot market for record storage, for instance, or boats and RV. It really depends. But yeah, we got a whole gamut that we can add to them.
Got it. And I know we've talked a lot about self-storage. I know you have experience in a lot of other real estate things that you're doing, other businesses you've built. And it's just, so the self-storage thing though is so interesting to me because you don't have toilets and plumbing and all that stuff that you have in other things. And I think sometimes that's a real turnoff for people, thinking they have to deal with tenant drama, which is probably not, as big a deal in this industry at all. But like apartments, I think some people shy away because of the number of zeros after the comma, right? They get a little bit concerned. Where do you see self-storage going in the future? And I know it'll always be there. I'm sure we'll always have self-storage, but you said it's kind of recession proof. It's done really, really well during COVID. Is there a time when self-storage does the worst? Is there an economic situation where you go, I hope that doesn't happen because that's really going to affect me in my self-storage business?
Yeah, we've been following this industry since it's been an industry. I mean, you can follow it back to the drayage houses that were back in the harbors and the ports. When the English came over to settle this country, but it really came into its own in the 70s. And what we've done and tracked it since the 70s is, and I'll never say it's recession proof or inflation proof, but very recession resistant and inflation resistant. And through every single economic cycle, when times are good, we as Americans, the hyper consumers of the world, we celebrate, we go buy stuff. And the baby boomers have collected all kinds of toys. They've collected boats and RVs and everything else. And they are the hyper consumers of self-storage as well. There's a whole bunch of them out there and they're downsizing. The kids are out, they're empty nesters, they downsize. They buy a second home down in Florida. Well, when they rent that out in the winter, or depending on how they trade their time versus being snowbirds, well, then they put all their good booze and their good toys and things in storage in their house down south when they come back to the north to live, and vice versa. If they've done very well, again, they have a lot of toys. Boats and RVs can't be parked in these subdivisions anymore because of the HOA. And then they move on to assisted living. And then when they pass on, the estate is settled. The kids take over. There's stuff that they divvy up. There's stuff that they don't want, but they won't get rid of because they can't, because it's mom's and she'll kill us if we, when we get to heaven and we sold the green couch. And so it goes into storage and it sits there forever. Millennials, everybody's worried about millennials because they're minimalists. And oh my gosh, what's going to happen now that this is the end of the storage industry? Well, those millennials like smaller houses. They're not committing. They may buy a tiny house, or they may just rent. And they save enough money to go then have a 6-month adventure somewhere. Well, then they put their stuff where? When they let go of their lease, in storage.
Right.
While they're living there, adventures and experiences require equipment like kayaks, paddle boats, fishing gear, camping gear, mountain bikes. And it's not all going to fit in the condo, the apartment, or the tiny house. So it goes into storage. And so what we're seeing now is another 40% increase in storage by the millennial generation. So we've got that going for us. And then again, when times are good, people buy more stuff. And then when we experience a recession or like the pandemic, we're really we're in the trauma and transition business. So you're right. We don't have the drama of tenants, as you mentioned, Mike. But when people come into our offices, our stores at the facility, they usually got some trauma or transition going on in their business, and sometimes their hair's on fire. They've lost their job and they have to downsize. Death, divorce, bankruptcy. A splitting of any relationship. People are going to move in with each other, moving back home. Businesses that were shut down in the pandemic, immediately their inventory and their equipment all went back into storage because they lost their lease or they were selling their buildings. And so again, we don't celebrate pandemics, we don't celebrate recessions, but our industry does extremely well. I mean, we go up and to the right during an inflationary period when times are good. And then the hockey stick effect kicks in when we go into a recession because there's fewer developments. The banks don't do as many development loans for storage. Yet the demand, almost doubles during that time because of the trauma and the transition.
Yep. That makes total sense. You have facilities in 9 different states. Are there
Mhm.
areas of the country that you think are just more conducive to success in storage, or does it not really matter?
Yeah, but that's a secret. I can't tell you, Mike.
Okay, we'll move right on. I'll talk to you after the recording.
Yeah, everybody thinks that there's this self-storage Oz, where rates continue to go up and no other competitors are. And we tell our folks when they start working with us and begin looking into it, drive a 2-hour radius from your backyard, send mailers out, do direct mail, make friends with the self-storage brokers in the market and the business brokers, and start searching. Start pulling on doors, communicating with the owners and looking and underwriting and evaluating these things. You'll find something within a 2-hour radius of yourself. There are markets that are a little more cost prohibitive, and that's California, just because land, everything's expensive. And so it's difficult to make real estate in general work out there, including self-storage. But outside of that, there's plenty of folks, and we'll hear them, the REITs and the big national players, and will say, well, this XYZ city is a flyover for us. We don't invest there. It's it's too difficult, or this or that. But then they turn around talking to their buddies about how they're doubling down in these certain markets as well. So anytime I hear that, I always know that there's something underneath it, and we don't focus on a market that is underserved. We have a lot of opportunities that are brought to us, and that's I'm in a unique position, and that our name's been out there, and we have a lot of students, we have joint venture partners, and they bring us projects. And so as part of our due diligence and analysis, then we look into the market to determine if there's growth and if it's sustainable and if the market rates are high. But we're not, many folks do, but we're not looking at a market that is underserved and then going in and trying to blast it. We do just the opposite.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, this is amazing stuff. And we touched on it earlier. If people want to get involved in self-storage and they have some money, but maybe not time or even the desire to learn the industry and do it themselves, and they want to go more of a passive route, how can they get involved?
So we're syndicators, and so we work with folks that are passive investors. And so we set up SEC Regulation D, 506B, and 506C offerings. So accredited investors and some unaccredited investors can invest alongside of us. Okay. And obviously we're in the money business at that point. We're a financial services company. One of our businesses is that, and we happen to deploy our capital in self-storage because we like it, we know it, and we're good at it. And so the folks that want to come alongside and do this passively, yet still learn about the business, can get involved by investing with us, and they get an ownership position. They get shares of the LLC. So that means they also get the benefit of a percentage of cash flow, a percentage of the profits upon a sale, and then they also get a percentage of the depreciation on their K1s. Yeah. And so many folks they're too busy, as you mentioned, Mike, or they've got some money, but maybe not enough for a down payment to get into a larger project on their own. So they invest with us, and they're getting very good returns. I mean, we're matching and beating what the market is returning out there in terms of other syndications and syndicators. But what we do for our folks, we take a kind of an extra step in that we educate our folks. We're educators. We have an education company. And so we teach our people about the business while they're investing with us. And we have webinars once a month, and then trailing off to once a quarter as to everything we're doing with their investment. They're invested in alongside of us as a partner. Nice. And so that's a good way for people to then, when it's time for them to go out and do it on their own, they've got not only the experience in the back of their head, but when they do go into the banks and talk to the banker and asking for money on their own project, and they ask, well, what's your experience? I can say, well, I'm a part owner in this facility over here, and here's what we've done. And because they are, and they have. Yeah. So it ticks that box, and it's a springboard for them to be able to then launch their own business.
That's huge. 2 questions. How much does a person in general need to have in order to get involved? Like where would be the threshold?
Mm-hmm. Typically, our projects that come out, $25,000 on the minimum. Most of our projects, $50,000 to invest with us.
Okay. Is that pretty average? 50, around 50,000?
Yeah, that's pretty average. Most syndicators out there are right at 50. There's some a little bit less, but that's about average.
Okay. And then how can they find you to do this if they want to learn more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for asking. PassiveStorageInvesting.com. PassiveStorageInvesting.com. You can get on that site, take a look at our projects that are upcoming, ones that we've closed out and that we're currently have in the works, and see a little history about what we've done and how we do it.
That's awesome. And that's a great website, by the way. Great URL. PassiveStorageInvesting.com. We'll have it in the show notes, guys. So if you're in your car driving on a treadmill, don't get off, don't get in a wreck. We'll have it for you. Listen, this has been very educational for me. I learned a lot. I really did. I've interviewed other folks that do self-storage, but I always learn something new, and this was no exception. You clearly know what you're doing. You're an expert in this area. I highly suggest you guys go check him out if you want to get involved, because honestly, I've never heard anyone say that our investors get a webinar and they get training so they can learn as they're investing. So you're getting paid to learn, basically, it sounds like. And that's, you can't beat that. So listen, Scott, thank you for doing this. Thank you for agreeing to be on here and being so open and honest and transparent for everybody, because it just makes this whole thing a lot better when people come on and they'll just talk plainly, and you do that. So thank you for that.
Well, we don't know how to do it any other way, so it's been my pleasure, Mike.
All right. Thanks a lot. Okay, guys, hope you got a lot out of that, enjoyed it. I know I did. Self-storage is definitely an area of real estate that I have an interest. I do believe 100% that it is recession resistant, COVID resistant. I get, and it makes a ton of sense to me logically why self-storage is something that I want to be in. And I think that that's something you should consider too. You can reach out to Scott and find out how to get involved with him if that's the way you'd like to go. But whatever it is, guys, whatever area of real estate, you know, on some level, it just doesn't matter. What matters is that you take action, right? The exact direction that you go is less important, because you can always change your mind. You can always pivot. You can always change directions. But you can't steer a parked car. And if you're a parked car, you can't change directions because you're not moving. So get out there and get moving. And if you need to change directions, great. But you'll never regret actually getting that car in motion. So get out there and get going. Make today the day that you look back years from now and say, that's the day I took action, and that's the day everything changed for me. Go make it happen. We'll talk to you next time.